everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions, and welcome to part number 4, our final part in our Christmas cardigan series. So if this is the first time you're landing on here and you're wondering where's part 1, 2, and 3, I will make sure to leave links for those in the description box down below. So this year I decided to add a quick little mini series to our project schedule, and that is to create a Christmas cardigan. So we broke it down into 4 parts. Today is part number 4, and that's when we're going to do the final touch, and that is adding a cuff to our sleeve, or 2 cuffs I should say, so you can see I've already done one. And then we're going to add the trim around the neck opening, and then we're going to do the trim down the front opening here. Now, originally I had shown you that I was going to do it all as one, but I'm actually going to do it in 2 pieces. These are all going to be done exactly the same. So I'm going to explain all of those details right now. And if you are new here, welcome. My name is Karen, and I love sharing my love of crochet with you guys. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you'll stick around for some more crochet fun. Now let's get to working on our trim. Okay, so I am going to take you through the trim method by showing you how we're going to do the trim around the collar. And as I said before, it is the same as the sleeve and the inside edge. But the reason why I wanted to show you the neck opening first is because there's this little join here that may make you feel like, oh, I don't know how to go around this corner. So that is why I'm going to use the neck opening to show you the method of how we did the trim. Now you might think, but Karen, we already did the trim in part 1. Isn't it the same? Yes and no. How we create the ribbing is the same. But in part 1, we started solely with the trim, and then we built the body from there. In this case, we are going to work the trim onto the body. So it's just kind of slightly different, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So as you can see, I've already done the sleeve, and it does kind of cinch in a little bit, and I did that on purpose because I wanted it to kind of be a little bit more snug around the wrist, but you can still see it's fairly roomy. So you're going to do your 2 sleeves, your neck opening, and then you're going to do your inside trim the exact same way. And like I had mentioned before, I lost a little bit of circumference in the bodice, so this is why I'm going to add a nice thick trim to the inside to just regain some of that circumference. So these cuffs will be a little bit thicker than the bottom. And if you want to make yours a little thinner, like you did here, you can. This was just my easy fix of how I created this cardigan. So let's get started on our collar trim. Okay, so I'm actually going to begin by placing a slip knot on my hook. And this is a little bit unusual compared to the way people usually add the trim on to their projects. And I'm doing it this way because of the fact that we're using 2 colors. If you were just using 1 color, we would just attach to the project immediately. But because we're using 2 colors, it gets a little bit funky. So I'm going to start with a slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to chain 15 for this one. So we have 1, 2. Okay, I had originally started with the green, but I think just so that you guys can see it on camera, I am going to start with the cream color first. So I'm going to go ahead and place a slip knot on my hook. And then I'm going to proceed to chain 15. Okay, so I have 15 chains there. We can see that a little bit nicer in the cream. And now we are going to attach it to our item. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that my cardigan is right side facing out. So this is the neck opening here. And I am going to find that first stitch right there. And I'm going to insert my hook. And then I'm going to slip stitch to join this chain to my cardigan here. There we go. So now we have it attached. And then what we're going to do is we are going to go into the next stitch and slip stitch into that stitch there. Okay. So the first stitch has this chain row, the foundation chain. So that will be considered a row. And then we move up to the next one for the next row. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slightly turn my work because I'm going to be working into this chain here. And then generally what I'll do is I'll just take that working yarn and push it to the back there like that. Okay, and then I can see where I'm going. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to find that first chain right here. So not this one where we slip stitched, not these two here where we slip stitched to the garment. It's this first free chain here. I'm just going to insert my hook and I'm going to slip stitch. And then I'm going to continue to slip stitch all the way down to the end. And just make sure that you're always going in through the back part of that chain, or we would call this the front loops of the chain. Okay, because your work is going to sit this way. See, so there's the front of the chain and you're working into these front loops here. So you're just going to turn it slightly and insert through there. Okay, and when you have the last stitch left, you're going to insert as usual, but you're not going to pull through this cream yarn. So we are going to bring in our green color here, and you're going to place it on your hook, and you're going to use that to pull it through, and that's going to finish off that row. Okay, so this is just like we did in the original trim. The difference is we're going to be attaching it to our project every time we come back down. So now we have the new color and we chain one, and then you're going to turn your work. Now this is where it gets tricky because I am not cutting off this color. I'm just going to drop it. And then you just always want to be aware of where your right side is. Okay, so this is the right side of my cardigan. And now I'm going to be working back down towards the cardigan. So I want to try and keep my non-working yarn out of the way. And I'm going to have a little tail here, but that's okay. And so I've chained one and I've got this tail here. I'm just going to do my best to ignore it. And so now I'm going to work into the back loop. So this is where it gets tricky because these first two rows, sometimes it's hard to figure out what's the front and what's the back row. So you just want to come back down here. And so this is the front, and I'm just going to follow this all the way up. See, and that's the row I just worked out of. So the chain kind of gets nestled back in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch my way back to the project. So I've chained one, but I always slip stitch right back into the very first stitch there. And I'm working into the back loops only. And then I'm just going to pull on that and pull on this just to tighten things up a little bit. And then I'm just going to continue as I've done before, slip stitching into the back loops. And this is what you will do for the rest of your trim method. So you're just helping it along. And we're going to go all the way back towards our project. Okay, so I've come across here towards my cardigan. I've got one stitch left, so I'm going to go into that stitch. I'm going to slip stitch. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that same stitch that I started out of when I went down with the cream. And then I'm also going to slip stitch into the next one. Okay, and so from here, this slip stitch, we're now going to turn around and slip back down, chain one, slip stitch back up, and then we will slip stitch back into the same stitch before we move on to the next one. Now for the sleeves, I did it slightly different because you can see that the sleeves kind of bunch in a little bit. For the sleeve, when I would come back here, I would not slip stitch into the same stitch. I would go up to the next stitch as if to say, this next row took care of this guy. And then I would go up another one. And then I would turn back around. And so what that did is that scrunched it in a little bit to create a little bit more of that nice cozy cuff. If you want your cuffs to just stay really straight, then you're going to do this exact method that I'm doing on the neck hole, okay? So I've just slip stitched into the same stitch we came out of, and now I'm going to go up one slip stitch before I turn my work. So I'm going to turn my work. So technically we're facing now the inside of the cardigan, and now you can really see that this is the inside of your trim. And just like we did before, you then want to find that very first stitch. So it's right here. So I'm not going to go here. That's where I slip stitched to the cardigan. I'm going to go right here. I know the green yarn is a bit tricky, just like that. And then I'm going to slip stitch and make my way back down. And then you just keep rinsing and repeating, rinsing and repeating. So once I get to the end, okay, and so I always do 2 rows of the green and 2 rows of the cream. Cream and green, they rhyme. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this second color of the green and just bring back that cream color again in just a second. Okay, and now I'm coming up to my last stitch here. So I'm going to insert my hook, and now it's time to introduce a new color. So anytime we come out to the outside, it's a great reminder, because the other yarn is here, that we're going to drop this one and we're going to pick up your other color, and that is what we're going to pull through. Okay, you can just give it a little bit of a tight pull there. And there we have it. So you do always want to do it the same way. I always drop and then pick up the new color from behind. And that way it'll make your edge consistent. Normally with the trim down below, we covered this edge, right? We built the cardigan on top of it. But because this is exposed, we just want to keep the method exactly the same every time we pick up a new yarn. So then you just repeat again. You chain 1. And then we turn our work, and now we're back to facing the right side of our trim. Look at how cool that looks. So 2 rows of each color, and then that is the back row. And then I would proceed to, whoops, see, I was already making a boo-boo there. Let's drop that green. So I've done my chain 1, and then I go back into that first stitch there, and I slip stitch. So that chain 1 just kind of helps us turn. It doesn't really count as anything. Just like that. And I go down along the way. Now, some of you, especially those of you that are a little more experienced, you may say, well, why don't you just start from here and work your way up and down? But like I said, because it's 2 colors, what ends up happening is you get this stitch, which is meant to go on the back, showing on the front. So I just found that this method worked out the best. So see, now I'm going to do my cream. And that is the basic repeat for all of the trim on this cardigan, okay? So you're going to continue going back and forth, and you would do it all the way around here until you got to the end. And then we're going to do the sides separately, just because it makes it a little easier to go around this corner. Just a little note about coming up around the bend here. This is the only one out of all of the parts you're going to do trim where you might find this a little tricky if you are newer. So normally when you come back, we always say slip stitch into that stitch you just worked from coming back, and then slip stitch 1. Well, if you're here, what you're going to do is just going to slip stitch into the join. You see how these are joined together because this was whip stitched? Instead of going from here, now some people might go from this stitch and skip over to this stitch. You can certainly do that. For me, I don't like having any types of gaps. So I would slip stitch from here, and I would just slip stitch in where I can pick up a couple loops, just like that. See that? That actually looks like a stitch. And I would slip stitch through there. And then I would do my work. I would come back down, and then I would slip stitch into the next. And now you're off to the races with the stitches again. So nothing to be afraid of, but I just wanted to address that for those of you that are a little on the newer side. You might have been a little bit nervous as to what to do. And I also didn't want you to leave any gaps in your project. So that is it for part number 4. So as I said, you're going to do your collar, and I'll put up some graphics of the finished looks. So I did my sleeve. In fact, I'm going to probably go back and finish the other sleeve because it's a great way to build your confidence. This is nice and easy. You just keep going. There is none of these little jogs here. And then once you come back, you're just going to slip stitch together so that the two, because you're going to work your way around, you're going to come together, you're going to slip stitch, then you're snipping off your yarn and weaving in your ends. So the green here looks a little thicker. That's just because I started and ended with the green. And that matches up nicely to my seam in the underarm there, okay? So, you know, I would probably do the sleeves first, do one, then do the second one, get you a little bit more confident and relaxed into the system of how to do it. And then I would definitely do the neck hole opening before you do the sides, okay? So make sure to do it in that fashion because it'll really make a difference. And in fact, what I'm gonna do is once I finish my sleeves and my neck opening, I will come back and meet up with you to talk about how to start down your opening. And then our cardigan will be done and you'll be ready to adorn it and add all kinds of fun appliques, which is a big part of what our Crochet Christmas tour is all about this year, which is due to be live very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. But for now, I'm going to leave you to finish those trim details. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly come on here since I'm at the bend here. I just wanted to show you guys, those of you that are a little newer, just what I was talking about. So I've just come across here with my cream colored yarn. Okay, so I've just done the last slip stitch. So I'm going to go into this stitch here where I came out of originally so that I finished that first row there of the cream. And now what we have here, see, this is the join where we're whip stitching these two sides together. I'm just going to go into here and slip stitch. Okay. And then I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to work my way back around. Okay. So it's going to look nice and seamless. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to come back down with the green, and then I'm just going to pick up in the very next side there. And that should round out that little kink there. But I'll show you guys that in just a moment. Okay, and here I am back again. So I've come back down with the green. So I'm just going to slip stitch back into the previous spot. And then I'm going to move over to where there is a stitch again. So I'm going to go right there. And that's what's going to help me kind of come right around that little bend, and I will turn around and go back down as usual. Okay, so I just did a few more rows here so you could see I just went around the bend, and now it's just business as usual all the way around, and you'll do the same thing on this corner here. So this is now your collar, and you can see that. See, it just goes around the bend just like that, and you are good to go. Look at how cute that's looking. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue finishing all of my trims and my cuffs here. Okay, so I just wanted to pop in here real quick. We're almost done, but I wanted to show you how I actually connected the collar trim, we'll call it, the inner trim here. And you can see, like I said before, I was going to make it nice and thick to make up for the loss in girth that I have here. So let me just pull that up there so you guys can see that. And I just wanted to just take you through how I set this up this way. So we've been doing the collar vertical. And so I wanted this inside trim to go horizontal so it goes down the center here. So you can see, so here I started with my green. I like to always start with the green just to kind of keep it consistent. And then I was able to work into these stitches here from this row, but then here we're actually working into the sides of rows, which we know can be sometimes a little tricky, but I think I did okay. You just want to kind of look at it, make sure it's not buckling, or you want to make sure this isn't flaring out because there's a lot of stretch here. And I'm pretty happy with it. So in this case, I started at the top and then worked my way down. And this is what it looks like on the bottom. And again, I was able to make sure that I ended up with the green. So just to keep that consistency, it was a little bit of luck. I actually added one extra row here just to make it nice and even with the green. So I'm going to show you just how I start on this side, just to get you going. And in case you might have any kind of questions about how to work it this way. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through that real quick right now. Okay, so I'm just going to take my green yarn and place a slip knot on my hook. And I'm going to start it the same way I did my collar. So I'm going to make my initial chain here. Okay, and then I'm going to take my chain and I'm going to attach it. So this is where on the other side I was able to start at the top and work my way down. Here I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up because I want the right side facing me. And of course we're going to work from right to left. So I've got my chain here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that very first stitch or last stitch, however you see it. Now I know it's going to be a little tricky here to see it with the green yarn. Just going to take that red out of the background there. And you can see it's gotten a little fluffy here. So I'm just going to find, I think that's my first stitch right there. And I'm going to slip stitch to join. And exactly how we did before. It's just that here you're going to see that we're going to work perpendicular. See that? So now we're working this way instead of this way. Hopefully that makes sense. So I've slip stitched to the first stitch. So that means this row is attached, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the next row. Now I know it's super hard to see, so hopefully you can see there. I'm going to go into the next stitch up, slip stitch, and that's actually the beginning of this row coming back. So then I would turn my work exactly as we did before. And now I'm going to work my way across here. So I'm just going to find the first stitch and I'm just going to go back across and slip stitch. So really straightforward. Again, I apologize for the dark yarn, but again, I was really bent on making sure that I use this green with this red for Christmas colors. Okay, and I'm just coming up to the last one here, and just like before, I'm going to insert, and now I'm going to pick up my new color. So instead of pulling through with the green, I'm going to pull through with the cream, and I'm going to pull through there and then pull through there. So now I've got my new color, and I'm going to throw that over there, and I am going to chain one, okay? And then I will turn my work over, and now I'm going to work back towards this trim. So this is the bottom trim here, and it's pretty straightforward, same as we did before. Hopefully it'll be a little easier to see now. So now I'm going to go into that very first stitch here, and okay, so just as before, we do the same thing going back up, and then you'll slip stitch into the same stitch, and then slip stitch into the next one to come back across. So that part is pretty much, whoops, see it just to show you where those stitches are. So that part is pretty much the same. The cool thing is you've got these stitches to work into. It's once we get to here, it gets a little funky because you've just got to kind of eyeball it so that you don't get them too close together, but you also don't want them spread too far apart. Yeah. Okay, so I've made my way up towards the body now. And so I've just finished this first row of the green. So I've slip stitched here, and now I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch up. So we're going to be working into the sides of rows. So I'm just going to kind of put my hook in where I think it's going to sit nicely. And I always want to see if it stretches out, that means I've gone too far up. And I always want it to sit nice and relaxed like that. See how the lines are sitting nice and relaxed? And then I just continue and make my way back. And I always like to put this one in the front here. So I'm going to make my way back. Just as normal, okay? So it's just basically whenever you come to here, you're just going to want to pay attention to where you're placing your hook. So I'm just going to finish this side here, and I'll come back in just a moment. Okay, so I'm just coming up to the end here of this row. So I'm back on this raw edge. So I'm going to go back into this stitch here where I began the row. So that's going to end it. And now I'm going to move up. So I'm going to find a little spot here so you can see where the rows go. So we have a row here and a row here every time you see a ridge. So I'm just going to go into that spot there, slip stitch, and then I just kind of see, is that going to sit? Yep. To me, that looks like it's going to sit nice and even. And then I just continue on as usual. I turn my work and I make my way back to the other side. So it's nothing mind blasting, but I just wanted to touch on this just because it is meant to be beginner friendly. And for those of you that might be a little bit newer, I just didn't want you to feel nervous about working this raw edge here. Okay, so this is now my last leg of the tour, so to speak. So I've already done this side here, which I love how that came out. Nice thick collar. And then I've done collar around the neck. So all I have to do is just this last side here. And then our basic Christmas cardigan will be complete. And here it is, guys. The final Christmas cardigan is finished. All the trim is done. The sleeves are done. The inner collar here. And then the top collar here, which I just love that little detail. And I'll also put up some graphics here of me wearing it. So this inner trim here of the collar, see how thick I made it? That did the trick to fix the lack of girth that I lost when I did the bottom trim. Now, I'm not putting buttons on this, so I don't really need it to actually fully close, but I wanted to make sure that it just laid really nicely down the front. And so there you have it. Now you can totally leave yours absolutely just like this. I think the collar detail and trim and the cuffs just definitely bring up those holiday Christmas vibes. But I am going to add some embellishments here. After all, I want this to kind of go a little bit like the route of the ugly Christmas sweater. So that's it, that's all. This is the end of part 4, and technically you have fully completed your Christmas cardigan. So I hope you guys had fun. I know these parts were drawn out a little bit because there's so much going on, but we finally did it. And if you are following along, then you still managed to finish it with plenty of time to enjoy this cardigan over the holiday season. As always, if you have any detailed questions, please do leave them for me in the comment box down below. And many of you I know do like to email me directly, and you can do that at info@crochetcrafty.com. And don't forget, come visit me on the website at crochetcrafty.com. Lots of goodies there for you, free written patterns, links to my Etsy shop with other patterns. There's a lot of sizing charts, free downloads there for you to help you with any of your projects. So make sure to go and check that out. And as always, don't forget to tag me in any of your projects if you use any of my designs. I always love to see the colorways that you all choose. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. And if you're new here and you've enjoyed following along, I invite you to press that subscribe button and join the Stitch Sessions crochet family. I upload a brand new video every Wednesday morning, and sometimes I'll throw up some bonus videos as well. So that's it for this week, and very, very soon you're actually going to see our Christmas crochet tour for 2023, which involves this cardigan. So we're going to be very specific this year with our tour. And so stay tuned for that. It's going to be very, 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 very soon. And more fun holiday stuff coming your way, as well as some cool and cold weather crochet projects. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me every week. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you've subscribed, if you've shared, if you've commented, if you've liked, and if you've also donated through the thanks button, all of the above. This helps the channel grow and helps me to share my love of crochet with more people. So thank you so much for that. And as always, happy crocheting. Remember to take really good care of yourselves. And as always, I'll see you guys in next week's session. Bye-bye.